It's time for Fire Field Vision, powered by NovaCare, as we take a look at the Chicago Fire. A couple of games this week, the U.S. Open Cup game, and then also they get ready for the New England Revolution this Saturday in New England. They're playing on turf. They have not done that in a while. Bastian Schweinsteiger will be the first time for him since he's come to the Chicago Fire playing on turf. And New England is one of those teams. In the previous segment, Frank, you bring up about the Fire. They've not really had one of those bad periods since they've hit this stretch. Well, New England, they just come off a win as they knocked off TFC 3-0. So they've got to be a little jacked up when they as they get ready for this game.
A little bit different than from the last time that they played here. Obviously, things change with Watson getting that early red card in the game. But it might be a good thing that the Open Cup is on turf, because then you get used to it. You have both games on turf. But yeah, it's going to be a different game, because I think you bring Kofi's back with New England, and I think the thing that they've done better when he plays centrally, whether it's Kawasi or Caldwell, I think that gives them a little bit more stability, Paul, in the back, because with the front four that they have, if it's Fagundes, if it's Rowe, if it's Wynn, Kamara, I think they have more of a freedom now attacking-wise, and then I think, where before, when you had only one holding guy in Kawasi, it was a lot for him to cover a lot of space, space. I think with both those guys, if Kawasi's back playing or Caldwell, or two holding midfielders, I think that those front four have more of an ability to take a little bit more risk going forward, knowing that they have at least 6 guys that are going to cover a lot of ground for them.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, one thing about Gershon Kofi is he may be one of the more underrated defensive midfielders in this league. He's very smart in his ability to break things up, to intercept the ball, close down passing lanes, but also to get stuck in at the right moment, shut down a counterattack when it needs. And now he's with another player in Kawasi who's able to cover a lot of ground. So you're basically splitting the field in half between two very athletic, very dynamic defensive midfielders. And like you said, all of a sudden now, a little bit, especially less defensive responsibility for someone like Lee Nguyen. And I think that's why we've seen his numbers going up. When he's at his best, when he can float around the field and play make, and he really has been good. And I would also say, we talk about home field advantage. It's difficult. New England's very good at home. Why? Well, there's a couple factors. One, that turf field is terrible to play on.
The guys are shooting the muskets off. He gets afraid of them.
But on a serious note, the atmosphere there is not good, right?
Yeah.
It's a huge cavernous stadium. You're far away from the fans. There's not a lot of them. And so it's hard to get up, to ramp up for the game, because the atmosphere is so kind of low. And so it can be almost a trap game in a way. So that's difficult for teams to overcome, and I think the Fire need to make sure that they're up for this game.
Yeah, and I think that the turf that's there, every turf is a little bit different.
Right.
I felt that the turf field there is a little bit heavier because of the amount of pebbles that they put in. I think it almost feels like you're playing in sand. So it takes a little bit of time to adjust. You got to put more pace in your passing. But the one thing that the Fire have done well, their ability to overload centrally, and then at the right time, get the wide backs, whether it's Polster or Vincent or whoever, get them wide and create overloads in the right moment. I think that's going to put a lot of pressure still on the outside back, because if the two holding guys are going to go out wide to cover, I think the Fire do a very good job recognizing it and then playing quickly centrally where the space is going to be.
Well, Frank, I really loved this matchup when New England played a diamond midfield, because if you overload centrally, you're isolating 1v1 on the wings with the fullbacks. And the fullback play has been a bit of a weakness for New England. They've been rotating guys. Obviously, Watson, to me, not a great player, and we saw what happens when you expose him 1v1. Now, if you're playing 4-2-3-1 with 2 defensive midfielders, if you can keep those 2 guys sucked in central, you can still create those 1v1 matchups against the fullback, and that's ideal. The Fire have done that very effectively this season. Like you're saying, Frank, that's got to be the goal against this team. It's going to mean Matt Polster is going to do a lot of running in this game. Brandon Vincent's going to do a lot of running. But I think it's the right way to play, even if it means at times you sacrifice David Accam in space.
We have some highlights to take a look at, some of the things the Fire did and maybe can do this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the last game. There's only 3 clips. And then obviously if we go to the video here, the one thing early on they did at Atlanta, their ability to play quick. And you see Schweinsteiger here, very good job by Vincent to provide that width. With one switch of play, I think, he goes down and it just delivers a great ball into the box here early on for Nikolic, who turns and it just hits that outside of the post, and, transition, Paul, we talk about this all the time, how dangerous they are.
I mean, this is what David Accam does to change the game. Probably should have played that ball a little bit earlier, But when he's on the field, they are able to break out, and teams have to respect that.
And then just this great recognition by Polster. You see that he sees the space, he's moving, the ball, you know, good combination play to play him through. And then that was one opportunity in the second half because they had 2 or 3, you know, that they could have put the game away. But I think their ability to play quick out of tight spaces, which they did very well against Atlanta because they like to counter-press, I think that's also very good on the road. You know, I think their ability to combine. And then if you play, you know, when you're playing on the road, you can sit a little bit more back, you know, because then you know the home team is going to press, you know, the space in depth and the pace that the Fire have can come in handy.
You know, I'll be interested to see who plays central because we've seen rotation there between Solignac and DeLue, who's in the middle, who's out wide right. And we saw when you want somebody to occupy a defensive midfielder, DeLue is a better choice. He almost man-marked Alonso against Seattle. Alonso is a little bit more on the ball than either Kouassi and Kofi for New England. He dictates more what they do, and that's why you put him. But if you have a player like DeLue who's able to get on the ball early on and get stuck in a little bit against guys like Kofi and Kouassi, I think he causes more problems there. And I wouldn't be shocked to see that be an early assignment for Michael DeLue, is to buzz around those 2 guys, make sure they know that you're there the entire time, and then allow Solignac and Akam to get on the ball a little bit more as they tuck in.
That's a look at Fire Field Vision, powered by NovaCare.